And we are live. Welcome everyone. It's Danny here. Today I have some fire interview for you that I'm really excited about. That's the first person I'm really gonna be interviewing out of my social circle. So I'm a little bit nervous and at the same time excited. This person is the person I follow for a good few years. That's been recommended to me by one of my followers when I was starting my hand balancing journey. Let's welcome Michael.
Hello. Nice
Michael,
to be here.
Tell us something about yourself.
About myself. So, yeah, what can I say? I am a hand balancer. I've been that for, I don't know, 12 years or so now. I guess I can start just explaining a little bit about my start into physical practices and stuff. So as a kid, I was kind of the video game dude of the class. So I was like very much unphysical through my entire childhood, and like I kind of like avoided even like physical training and like skiing and stuff that is kind of very popular in Norway. I just hated it, and like obviously I was bad at it, which made you kind of avoid it even more. And I had like kind of like semi back problems as a teenager. I mean, I was kind of overweight, and I guess the only reason for these back problems was just that like I sat on the floor playing video games all day, and I didn't move or like do anything. And like I was at a chiropractor that told me that like, yeah, you know, like martial arts is good for your back. That was all he said. Like, yeah, you know, karate is good for your posture. And I was like, yeah, there is a karate club, and I just became friends with a guy who did karate. So I went there and I tried it out, and I kind of fell in love with it instantly. So it was the style called Taniha Shitoryu, which I did for like I basically did it religiously almost for like 10 years. I was completely obsessed. So I got my second degree black belt, and during this time, like I kind of started getting interested in breakdancing. I'd seen some VHS tapes, and like my friends were into hip hop and stuff, and then like I kind of got completely caught by this. And I'm from a very small town in Norway called Røros. They're basically 5,000 inhabitants there, so of course you're not going to find a lot of breaking up there. It's kind of in the middle. It's kind of in the middle of Norway. It's about 5 hours north of Oslo, and I mean, like since Norway is so long, I mean it's not even close to like the real north, but it's up in the mountains, so it's really cold. It's really kind of there's not much happening here. It's very pretty, but it's not like the most interesting. But yeah, I moved to Oslo, started doing breakdancing with a bunch of people there, got completely obsessed with that, and after about 6-7 years of breaking, I met some people doing like circus, because I was teaching at this little culture house. I was teaching some like basic acrobatic classes. Got in touch with a hand balancer that came and taught some classes there. He was from the States, named Corey Tobino. And like I had done a lot of kind of handstand moves before, kind of just in breaking, like a lot of the spins and a lot of stuff. I was good on my hands, but I didn't have any technique or any specificity like that. But I got really kind of captivated when he started teaching me, and I learned it really fast because I had like, even though my technique was strange and off, like I had control. So it went really fast for me to learn one arms and stuff. And I decided to go to Circus School because I was like, I didn't really know what to do. I'd been studying at university, and I was like, circus thing, this looks cool. Fuck it, let's try. And I applied for a Circus School in Stockholm, which is one of the kind of the major ones in Europe. And I got in first try, luckily enough. Did 3 years there under a Russian coach named Alexander Gavrilov, and worked as a performer since then. Also been a lot interested in kind of like the teaching of handstands and how it works biomechanically, how people approach it differently, how like within the circus and kind of sports field, there is like this very uniform way of thinking. You need to do it exactly like this, while what I've seen and also experienced is that like there is a technique, but like people need to adjust it to fit themselves as well, because not everyone is a robot that is designed the same. Like we are different people and different bodies. Yeah, so I've been quite kind of into all of these things, and I guess that's why I'm also here to keep talking about the handstands and stuff.
All right, wicked. Now, so let's forget this bumper and the intro. personal question.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to answer.
Oh, fire.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel or DC? I'm not sure. Let me see. I'm not like super into those comics, but I'm not sure. I'm really not sure actually, because there's like I kind of like individuals ones within each of the kind of universes. But I've never like that's the thing. I've never been like super into Batman or Superman or Spider-Man or X-Men. Like there are more kind of like these kind of fringe characters I like within both of them. So I really don't know.
Let's ask again. Which one is your favorite character from both of the universes?
I mean, Batman's cool. I think Wonder Woman is kind of cool as well. And I think in Spider-Man, I mean, or like not in Spider-Man, but like in kind of the DC stuff, I like a lot of kind of the villains like Galactus and stuff. It's just like such like epic proportions. And I mean, I did really like actually the first Avenger movie. I think it was just a well presented way of doing kind of like the full crew of loads of superheroes, but everyone got kind of screen time and they were interesting. Whereas number 2, I wasn't that much into it. It was just too much kind of run and gun action.
The second one was Ultron, right?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
I haven't. Yeah, and I did see the number 3, but I didn't see the fourth one. But as for comics, I'm actually very into. Do you know the Sandman universe by Neil Gaiman?
I think I've seen it on your stories, and I Googled it at that time.
It's very good.
I'm more into movies. I grew up on anime, on Dragon Ball, and I kind of grew up of animated stuff. I prefer watch movies, like a live action with the special effects. I used to do a little bit of the video effects myself. I was playing around with it. So it really fascinates me how they are doing it. And I like to, in my head, like digest and put everything in the pieces, like how they possibly could do it.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. Like I really love watching like from how they used to do it in old movies with like all the miniatures and stuff, where it's like, okay, they didn't have the CG, so they just had to find like a way to like make a painting literally just that looks like the background and
like
the eye believes it.
Old Godzilla, like old Godzilla movies with rubber suits and miniatures of the buildings.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Star Wars used a lot of that too, and really well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I like a lot of different ones within there, but like hard to answer a specific one.
Okay, so how? Let's move to the main subjects. Okay, so you mentioned already hand balancing, circus school, breakdancing. Tell me more about the circus school, because I'm really intrigued. Like how does it look there? What kind of like a day in a circus school? How does it look like?
So like circus schools, I guess like there's a lot of variation, I think, from the different schools, but I think the kind of general stuff that you have kind of as part of the curriculum is when you enter a circus school, it's through an audition, so that they basically get to just test your specific, like you're applying kind of wanting to specialize with some sort of skill. At least like if we talk about the professional circus schools, the kind of like the professional schools, that then you have experience from before and you want to kind of become a performer, and then you have like the kind of the preparatory schools where you come as anyone and you start learning, and then eventually maybe go to the professional one. I was at the professional school, and you then have a fair bit of hours within kind of your specialization discipline, which to me then was hand balancing. So that is kind of like the largest part of kind of your physical training is within your discipline. Then everyone has acrobatics. Like we had a couple of gymnasts teaching basic acrobatics and stuff, and of course advanced acrobatics for the ones that could, and many could. Then I also had like a secondary discipline within it, which was aerial straps, which I did for a few years in school. So kind of the physical part of school was like, we would have it in the morning. We would have 3 to 4 hours of physical training, like 3 classes usually, or 2 classes depending on. and there would be lunch, and then afterwards we would usually have either like theater classes, dance classes, or there would be like free time to, we would, for example, have like specific tasks. We would have like, okay, yeah, so we have been working with a concept with the teacher, for example, kind of a workshop, or a teacher is kind of working with like specific creative scenarios, and then you are supposed to kind of create something with that, and then you, for example, present it on the Friday to the entire class and so on. So that is something that we quite often did. Or like it could also be the opposite. Like I think in the second year we had all the classes in the afternoon, like the physical classes in the afternoon. And like there is like what we also would do is like, because we had the space for up all the way until evening, so we would usually stay there and also train after school. I mean, we were all young and full of fire, so we would just like, go ham every day, basically, like way too hard in one sense too. But yeah, so like my kind of entire impression, I mean, it was a blast. It was incredible because it was so both like so mental in terms of like learning all these kind of like standing on stage and kind of expressing yourself to an audience, and like finding that kind of calm in front of people, learning to master a bunch of just physical skills. To me, I was of course most focused on the handstand part, where like my Russian teacher, he was absolutely hilarious, and like old guy, just like the stereotypical Russian like gymnastics or circus coach, very very stern but also very funny and very specific in the way he wanted everything. Told us loads of different or loads of stories from kind of when he was in like the old school circus in Russia with circus bears and you name it. So it was a very special and kind of unique experience. The 3 years passed by really fast, with like left me with so many impressions, and going from basically a guy that was pretty good at handstands until a guy that was able to kind of perform on stages around the world. So yeah, it was certainly something.
I had a question about this, still about this course. So if I'm coming as a like a fresh, no experience whatsoever with any circus arts, no hand balancing and stuff like that, what choices do I have, and could you explain all of them? Because there were some terms as you were speaking that I didn't understand.
Yeah, so like to start from the beginning, then like that is why you have, in general, it's kind of informal, but you have the preparatory schools, which then there is no set formula for those, but those are kind of various circus training programs, either like most of the time run privately by people, where you can come, there are various classes, and you start learning, basically like you start developing some sort of discipline. And I think this is maybe the most fundamental thing, is that like you decide to get good at a specific thing, good enough so that eventually you can start specializing in that, and take it towards a performance context. So you would then start out by, let's say you would want to get good at aerial straps. I mean, you'd find either one of these preparatory schools, or you would just find a private teacher that'll start teaching you the skills so that you can just start developing some vocabulary. You learn a bunch of tricks, you get the conditioning needed, and you can start making sequences together and stuff like that. And when you like, the purpose and kind of the idea of these professional schools is to take you from someone who has physical skills to someone who can basically monetize those skills by being a performing artist, and like being kind of both technically good enough to stand on the stage, and to just have the confidence of being in front of an audience, and also being creative in the terms of like, ideally you want to be able to create something unique that makes you different from the other hand balancers, for example, and so that like expressing your own ideas and stuff like that. So the starting point is usually that people get like a fair skill level from some other place, either like loads of like ex-gymnasts, people that have done private classes, people that have done preparatory schools, people that have just trained themselves but like spent some years. So when you get to the audition, like the teachers at the school will say, okay, yeah, yeah, this guy and this girl, like you can see that these people have trained, they have all the drive and motivation to do this, and we see that they can go places with it. So it is kind of tough to get into the higher schools, because I mean they are looking for people that they know can go into the business and make a living, and they want to produce successful artists, which is also good for the school and so on.
Mm-hmm. After you moved the phone, something started to click. Did you move it to some sort of router or something?
Is it chopping now?
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah.
I didn't do much. I just moved the table a little bit.
Maybe the wire from the earphones.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's perfect now.
Okay.
He's very good. So and again.
Yes, I'm gonna put something.
So if I finish that school, is that what? We lost him. Let's wait for Michael to connect again. Some difficulties.
I think I pushed the back button and it dropped out.
Yeah, it's fine.
Now I'm back.
Yes,
so you were
still clicking. It's fine. It's still clicking, but don't worry. It's not a big problem.
What about now?
Yeah, now it's fine.
Okay. There.
Yeah, works.
Okay, good.
Yes, okay. So what I wanted to ask is, when I finish that school, I'm literally ready to go, or is still some steps I can do after go to like another school and improve what I already learned in that school?
You mean from a preparatory or from a professional school?
From professional.
Like most of the time, like when you're finished with the professional schools, like first of all, people are very eager to work. It's a little bit like doing university or like doing any other kind of school. Like by the third year or like by the end of your degree, you're like, okay, I'm a bit done with this. I want to move on. So you want to like, and particularly like you want to go out there, you want to earn money, you want to get the experience with working. So like there can be, I mean, you could take courses or you could take workshops with specific people, but what usually happens is by the end of the third year, like you kind of, as your graduation ceremony, you create an act, and with that act, you try to sell it, and kind of get a lot of contacts and kind of do that entire thing, so that you basically network to the degree that people get to know, okay, yeah, you are able, like we can see that you're able, and we would like to work with you. So for me, for example, when I was in the third year in school, there was a friend of mine who he was offered a contract from a Canadian company called the Seven Fingers, but he was already booked on another contract. And he asked me, because he had seen some of my work, and I said, yeah, you know, like, would you like me to give them your name, because like I'm busy with this contract? And I was like, yeah, hell yeah, that's great. So suddenly, like, when I was finished at school, like some months later, I went to Montreal and rehearsed a show, and then like that was kind of my first gig. I came back from there, like then another circus company had heard that, oh yeah, he worked for them. Oh yeah, that's a pretty big name. We need a guy with his skill set. I got hired onwards from there. So it's mainly that like people would like to and kind of start actually getting into the real work business at that point.
Okay, that's fair point. It's like you said, it's literally you're finishing some sort of course or any qualification, and you just want to go there and do stuff.
Yeah.
So I was just want to make sure that if you do the school, if you're actually ready.
Yeah,
that's
of the
good
time.
News. It's never too late for me to start.
Yeah.
maybe I'm gonna go at some point. if I lose like 60 kg.
Yeah, or you can become a base, lift people. Then you should be used.
Yeah. I've done some acro yoga. If I would just improve my flexibility, I could be okay. Not good, but okay. So tell us something about the preparation for performances.
Yeah, it's quite specific for each discipline, I think. I vary. For me, what I do is it's a lot of mental preparation in one sense, because I mean, if you've been on a show run for a while, so you play the same show like 5 days a week for a month, or even just for a week, really, like you get into a rhythm, and you kind of have like your kind of little ritual before, and that gets you calm and focused. If you haven't played for a while, like I'm sure next time I go on stage, since it's been like almost a year, I'm gonna be like, whoa, shit! I'm gonna feel like nervous, like I did in the beginning. It's gonna be hilarious, because it's like to return to that feeling just because you haven't been in the context for so long. So it's a lot about kind of just like, I'm not that nervous in general, but it's like you have to manage kind of the nerves, and like you get that kind of like, okay, it's almost showtime before you go on stage.
I literally know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
My previous podcast, I recorded solo after almost a year and a half of not doing it. I was stuttering like that was my first time.
Exactly. And like it always gets you jittery when you're going to go on stage, and once you're on stage, it's calm and you just go through with your stuff usually. So what I would do when I would be on tour is that I would do some training like 1.5 hours before the show, and I would train for like 45 minutes, an hour. And then I'd eat something like light. So like I'd eat some bananas or like just something simple. And I'd completely rest for about like 25 minutes until like 5-10 minutes before the show. I just go through a stretching routine, because like my training previous to the show, the 1.5 hours before, is just to feel out my body. Okay, does the shoulders feel good? Like, am I stiff anywhere? Like, am I online kind of? And then I kind of calibrate a little bit the balance, and maybe go through some of the hard tricks that I'm going to do, and just like feel it out. And I rest afterwards, and like hydrate, eat a bit, and before the show I stretch, I get ready, and usually just before I would go on stage, I would do like a 2-arm handstand in a pike, and just feel like, okay, does my shoulders like is my shoulders like locked in good position when I go down and up in pike? And if this feels good, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm ready. And if it doesn't work, like I stretch my shoulders a bit, and I just do one more until I feel that, okay, yeah, my shoulders are like just welded in place where I want them. And then it's just like, okay, boom, showtime, and just get into kind of the mind state of being on stage. So yeah, it's one of both physical, but like a lot of kind of that, like getting ready for the intensity, like, because also like, you know that some parts of the show is going to be really heavy, like really tiring, for example, and you just need to be like, okay, yeah, you're dying right now, but like, you know that you need to be on the music cue at the right point, because someone else is trusting you to be there, or like someone comes jumping and you have to catch them and put them down. Like you can't mess it up. Like even if your shoulder is not feeling super great, okay, find a way to bring her down so that she doesn't crash. Like there's a lot of this kind of stuff that you become super aware of your body all the time. I remember like several times I'm standing on stage looking at the audience, or like looking somewhere, and in my head I'm going like, okay, shit, my shoelaces is untied. I need to tie the shoelaces before the next scene, because we're going to run and I might stumble, and I can't stumble. It can be dangerous. And I'm just like kind of walking. I'm doing the entire routine just like normal, but all I know is, okay, when I get there, I'll just turn around and I'm going to tie my shoelace really fast. Boom, and you're back and you do it. It's like you need to like do this kind of problem solving very often on stage, because things that you don't expect will sometimes happen. And
yeah,
I think
the Murphy law, yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of kind of nuances and subtleties to it, and that's what makes it interesting as well. Like to be into that work.
How about preparation for the show, like a new show? Let's say you plan some solo performance. How would your training look like prior to the show? How would you scale up and program the intensity of the training?
That's actually a very good question, because it's something that people very often misunderstand if we look at circus and kind of performing arts, because there's a very large difference between what I do and what we do on stage, and for example, what a gymnast would do for a competition. So, or a power lifter would do for competition, because what you do as a gymnast or as someone in sports is that you train very specifically with your coach for a period of time to peak at your optimal level for performance day. Everything, you have an entire team working with you and for you. Make sure you're peaked. You go in, you smash the absolute best you have, like the gymnast who pulls out the top-notch routine they can, like and afterwards they can reduce the intensity again. Whereas when you go on, like when you make a show, for example, you need to make it sustainable for 5 shows, 7 shows a week. Like with some shows they're like 10 shows a week, like double show days and stuff like that. It's dreadful. And like what you need to do is you need to make something that is sustainable for that. And that is a huge mistake I made when I came out of Circus School. I was young, I was strong, I was like, okay, I'm going to put together this badass routine with the stuff that I love and the tricks that I want to do. And then you come and it's like, holy shit, you can't do it day number 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 because you just decided on the really big boy, super hard things. And you just need to understand that, okay, what I need to do is I need to program sustainably. And like what I found is that like I would never put more than 70% of my capacity on stage, so that I know that I can repeat it and that I can make it work. So I think the first and foremost is making a routine where it's safe. And one strategy that I applied after learning, like one thing they do in Circus School is that they have an A, B, and a C version of a act. So the normal version is the one you run every night when you're fine, nothing special, nothing's like it's within your capacities. You can do it, it's good, but safe. Then you have the injured version, which is like, okay, athlete isn't feeling great, like things are shaky. Okay, do this, like it's the same act, same music, like the rhythm is the same. It's just that for the performer, it's slightly easier. And then you have like the kind of the big version, like for Soleil, they run that as kind of the royale version of the show. Whereas for me, like it's just if I have some, like if I want to try something new, if I have some like friends over, I want to do something extra impressive or like try to implement a new move, then I have that one. But that is a rare occasion that you do when you feel you have it. So in training up to it, like what I would do is, I remember when I was in Circus School and like going for graduation, I would present once on a Friday, the act, and I wouldn't manage. It was so hard, and I come off and I'm like, fuck, I'm never gonna be able to do this. God damn it, I suck, and like really like self-doubt. And one of the teachers, he came over to me, the acro teacher, and he's like, okay, I see the potential in this act, but I see your problem. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna take you to the studio every day, and we're just gonna run the act back to back to back until you get the fitness you need for it. Because this was a huge difference. And I'm sure you know that, like, if you do, like, let's say you just go in, you're fresh, and you do one set of something badass, like you can do it. But if you have no rest period, or if you do it like a super fast sprint and then try to do the same set, it's going to be harder. And this is what happens. Like the blood is rushing, you start getting stressed, like all of these kind of factors enter into it. And for balancing, it's terrible. You become shaky. So he just took me to the studio, and I would run the act, I would have a sip of water, and I'd run the act again, I'd have a sip of water, and I'd run the act again. And by the third time, I couldn't pull the same tricks, but he just said, it doesn't matter, just do a one arm where you would do a one arm, don't do the hard one, because you just do one to get used to the rhythm of it, to get used to, like, you get there, you're this tired, you breathe this much, and yet you keep the rhythm going. So that's something that I really learned a lot from, just like making sure that when you're practicing for a routine like that, you're actually going, like, you're learning the routine and as a distinct memory, like you're training the entirety of it. Because before I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll just train the tricks like separately and like no problem putting them in the routine. And then you just eat shit because you don't have the, like, you haven't made your body just
and fluidity.
Yeah, and just like the calm, you know how this feels. And like, it's funny with this show that I played like 300 times like 4 years ago, we're gonna play that next year again, and I've done it so many times that, like, if I just think about the music from the show, I remember exactly where I was, I remember exactly what kind of thing I was doing, I remember the burn in my bicep right there, and so on and so on. So it becomes so important that, like, that you practice for the very specific context that you are actually working in, and that I think is something people forget when looking at these kind of specific disciplines.
Yeah, that's what I keep preaching. Repetition, repetition, repetition. The more you do, the better you get at it.
It's pretty much that simple in the end.
That is that simple. You want to get better push-ups, do more push-ups. Make them easy, do them more often. Simple as that. I'm attempting 1,000 burpees on Sunday.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
We've done 500 now. This past Sunday, we could easily go for 1,000. I just wanted to go for a walk after. So we're like, no, next week. So it took me 1 year to build up to stuff like that. But like you said, it's just high volume stuff.
Yeah, and like, I mean, giving yourself the time as well to adapt, I guess. I think if we look at kind of the more like training relatable aspects of a lot of this, it's like I think it's always very easy to underestimate how long it can take you to not just do something, but to do it safely and to be able to replicate it. And I think like patience is just super key in those types of scenarios, so that you just don't rush ahead and like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this by Monday, and then like you think that you can do like, okay, I'm just gonna do like, as a friend of mine, like he said to me, yeah, I'm gonna just do like 50 pull-ups every day. And I'm like, yeah, but if you want to get good at pull-ups, make yourself a fucking routine where you work on pull-ups this day, rest days, then you work on it again, and you make sure you progressively overload. And I told him, like, what's going to happen is you're going to do your 50 pull-ups for a week, and you're going to stop doing them because like you're going to find an excuse like, oh yeah, I'm too sore today, or you're going to get injured, or you're not going to make any progress, or you're going to get bored and stop doing it. And that doesn't help.
Yeah, but that's everything here is like, what's the training about? It's about repeating the same motions for a certain periods of time to improve certain motion, right? So I've been doing these burpees. I had breaks, obviously I had breaks, but they are more caused by the lockdown. But pull-ups, recent one we were doing 100 pull-ups a day. I didn't do every day because I was doing my own stuff as well, which was draining enough, so I adjusted. But you just need to stick to it and trust it. That's what it is.
Yeah, I guess it's I mean, it's super specific though. I mean, if you do have the capacity for that kind of work, it's definitely not an issue. But like in the example of this guy that I mentioned, for example, like he doesn't really have the capacity of doing that many pull-ups. So it would like there are many more kind of effective regimes that someone like he would be creating a routine with that. But for handstands, it's also similar, since you need so much repetition, and like hand balancing I mean, there is a lot of strength involved, but like eventually you want it to become kind of like as technical as possible, where you start decreasing the amount of strength used rather than increasing it, as in like conventional strength training.
So that's what the pole dancing taught me when I've been only on these few classes. Because if I would make the teacher told me, she's my friend, like if you would meant to do this, what you're doing now, obviously I was overusing strength for 2.5 minutes of the song. By half of the song, you're done. Yeah. She was really pushing me to pinch that elbow to that pole, hold it, don't keep the arms straight, don't pull with the scapula. Just it was literally basics, but I got the concept. And she also introduced me to probably what you're doing as well in your performances. After a big move, there is loads of small moves that allow you to recover from it. Is it something like that you do as well?
Oh yeah. Like, I mean, for most people who do this kind of performing stuff, like you need to you need to make it and like to be adjustable so that you can recover. I mean, when I'm doing like my longer, if I do a longer set, like, I mean, like at one point your forearm is just going to be like super pumped, and you won't feel your grip even, and it's going to suck for the next time you're going to balance. So it's really important to be able to like deal with the energy management. And I mean, like, that's also within performance, where like you either do like kind of choreographical work, or you do kind of like more kind of character work or kind of theatrical stuff, where you're binding together, kind of like it becomes the connective tissue of the piece you're presenting. But it's also super important just for like the basic energy management, because I mean, there are people that can stand on their hands for 30 plus minutes, but then again, no one's going to watch that on the stage anyway, because after 2 minutes, you're going to be like, okay, yeah, can do this forever. Okay, that's pretty impressive, but like you're going to lose interest because you're just looking at the same image all the time. So it's also like in how you present it and how you make it special, in a sense. And yeah, first and foremost, like being efficient with the way you do things is crucial for that.
Let's move forward. So, what other disciplines did you done in the past, except the one you mentioned already?
So I mean, it would the main kind of physical things that I've been into. Yeah, as I said, it was karate, it was breaking, it was then hand balancing and aerial straps. Those were kind of the main ones, and within each of them, like I learned a lot of various things. Like breaking is of course very dynamic, very forceful, very I mean, it doesn't have so much methodology. It's very just try, find your own way of doing things. And circus is the opposite. It's like there is a methodology and there's a way you're supposed to learn this. So it's like it's precise in that sense. And for me, like there's interesting things within both. And also like the aerial straps, I mean, it's much more kind of pulling strength, like more like rings in a sense, and a lot of like it kind of kills your shoulders, a lot of the stuff within the aerial straps. So I've kind of put that on, like not so interested in that anymore. That's also where I hurt my shoulder last year. And like, I mean, I enjoy a lot of kind of strength stuff. So I have been doing like on and off like calisthenics related stuff, such as like I was doing a lot of muscle ups in Circus School because of the straps, and like was doing loads of ring routines as kind of my prep for that, like loads of front levers and back levers and like presses to handstand in the rings and so on. And I guess like within like the circus world, you tend to try a bunch of things just because like your best friend is really damn good at what you're not good at, and you play together. So I've done a little bit of Chinese pole, if you know what that is.
I have no idea.
So Chinese pole is basically like, I mean, imagine a pole dancing pole, except it's thicker, and it has a rubber coating on it, so it's super sticky, and it burns the shit out of you. So you need to wear a lot of clothes, like a lot. It also like it destroys your jeans. It ruins all your clothes. And they do a lot of acrobatic material on, a lot of jumps and flips and stuff like that. And
okay.
Like, I mean, I was never really good at the Chinese pole. I've just like dabbled with it on and off in Circus School a little bit before as well. And I was considering doing it in Circus School as kind of my secondary discipline. But when I saw how good the guys in my class were at it, I was like, nah, I'm just going to leave that to them, because they were like total monsters. We had 3 guys who were just like completely bonkers at it. So I've tried a bunch of things through the years. Did a little bit of acrobatics, never got really good at that. I've also based people in hand-to-hand and stuff, which I love doing. But my elbows can't bend more than this. So it becomes very heavy for me to do any kind of front supporting stuff like this. Front squats is impossible, for example. I think it's just like the joint has changed from like all the years of like literally jumping on my arms. So actually, like, but you can touch your shoulder, right? If you turn your hand this way.
Sort of.
Yeah, because you see, for me, like there's no way even here I can touch my shoulder. So I think it's just like the joint having like been changed by all the impact and all of like the stupid stuff I've done for all the years. So it's actually funny because
it just got in.
Yeah, because like in here, like it's really heavy for me to do muscle ups now. I used to do 10 muscle ups and rings, no problem. Now it's super heavy because like you see, it's to get my hands close to my chest. I need to be really violent here because you see, like if I put my hand here, like to get on top of the ring compared to someone who can get the hand closer to the shoulder, it's a lot easier. And I remember it used to be so easy for me to do a bunch of them. And then like I tried a year ago and I was like, holy shit, why is it so heavy? And I just saw that, damn, like, yeah, I literally need to kind of force it through like this much more than kind of this way that I used to do.
Why didn't you try this ones when you go sideways? When you go sideways?
I don't think I'm strong enough for that. Like and then of course I haven't done like muscle ups and that kind of stuff for years. I was thinking of starting to do it a little bit again now that I've been training some pulling strength again. And I bought a set of rings that I'm going to start using next week, so perhaps I'll get back to it.
Looking forward to that. I wanted to come back to breakdancing a little bit because I used to breakdance back in the school, like ages, like what was that, 40 kgs ago, and I still could do some sort of way. How they are called in English? Boom, 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 boom. You know, the windmill. I could do this one. I was able to do this one. I was able to do the Thomas wheel. Yeah, that's how
flares.
Flares. Yeah, the flare. That one I was able to do, just a single one. I never literally follow it through.
Yeah,
so tell us more about this breakdancing. How does this actually started? How long did it take? Where did you been training?
Yeah, so for me, like breaking was it was my second real passion after karate, and like I got really into breaking. Like I watched a VHS called Freestyle Session 3 from '98, and I was just completely blown away. This is like around 2001, 2002, and I started just trying in my room at home in my little hometown. I did the kind of the pause play on the VHS to just see what they were doing. I tried learning windmills, and eventually I managed a couple of windmills, and I was super happy. It was kind of my first. It was like my first physical achievement. It felt like, because I always felt so clumsy and so like I was never kind of good at sports like the other kids, but like I managed windmills. I was cool, I thought, and then I moved to Oslo and I met all the breakers there. Like I was lucky to kind of get into the community there rather quickly, and met a couple of people that started teaching me. Just one guy notably that named Adil, who helped me out a lot and taught me a lot of stuff. And he had some of the best flares I've ever seen. So I started training flares a lot. I was training a lot of power moves, a lot of the spin stuff. But we had extremely bad methodology, all of us. It's hilarious to look back at. But we were also kids. We were fucking stupid. And also, like, there was much less tutorials. Like, there wasn't YouTube at a time. So, like, we tried and we did some stuff. But I think some people became good, but there are like a lot of people, including myself, fell off early because of kind of the lack of methodology and stuff within the culture, because it's also kind of like a tough culture to get into in one sense, because it's so, I mean, people are friends, but it's very competitive, and it's like the battles and everyone is kind of like acting hardcore and cool and stuff. And it gets kind of childish. And I guess that's why I eventually kind of moved on from it as well, because like, I don't want to go and like be in your face and pretend like I'm badass, because like I'm just not that kind of person. Like I love to watch breaking, and I love to watch the people who are a bit like that for real. Like they have a chip on their shoulder and they want to fuck you up in the circle. Like I love to watch that, but like for me, I felt I just had to fake that entire thing, and I never felt comfortable with it. But it's and of course, not everyone who, like, many people are great at breaking and don't have like a chip on their shoulder. It's not what I mean, but I guess
I know what you get. You have to fake the hate.
Yeah, and you need to at least like you need to be comfortable in that type of situation, and I just never got there. And I was also a bit too careful when I was breaking. I was kind of always thinking that, I'm just going to learn these things first, then I can start battling. And like I was I would always postpone it until it basically never happened.
Never ending circle.
Yeah. While the kids who were just like, yeah, they didn't give a shit and they just went battled and they were really crap. But you gave them 3 years and boom, they were really good. So that's kind of how how one has to approach it. But breaking is like, I think it's one of the, I have a lot of respect for the art form, because if you look at like the amount of physical vocabulary and creativity and dancing styles that has come out of breaking in a reasonably short amount of time, it is absolutely outstanding. Like, it's not a fair comparison, but if you look at stuff like gymnastics, gymnastics has a very clear set of rules. Everyone learns the moves more or less the same ways. The criteria are very clear. You lose points if you do it like a little bit different and so on. It becomes very regimented, and it becomes like there's very little room for creativity, even though it's called artistic gymnastics. Like when's the last time you saw a side flip in floor routines? It's like, isn't it 80s, so basically, because now it's just twist more times and flip more times, and like you have to do it very specifically, and that just makes it so that like it becomes rather limited what new stuff comes out. And like it's funny because like gymnasts were the first one to do flares. Apparently a guy named Philip Delassel who did flares first, but then Kurt Thomas did it in the Olympics, and then he got known as the Thomas Flare. But like the basic flares in breaking, like there are like 20 variations of flares nowadays with all these kind of weird stuff that you see. And the interesting part is because in gymnastics, you take a body and you shape and mold that body to fit the certain technique. So you start, you get your splits, you get to this, you get to that, then you work on your flares like this and that and that and that, and boom, you have a very standardized looking flare. While in breaking, it's like you take the move and you make it work for you. So it's kind of the opposite thing. So that's why you see like people with like, for example, what's called like V flares or universal flares, where like the legs are almost together and like they go in this really weird trajectory, kind of from like a press to handstand to a mana back to a press to handstand. It looks crazy. And the reason why these things came about is just some guy came along who had really flexible shoulders and a crazy pike, and he tried to do some stuff, and oh shit, it works for him. And hey, like boom, he had a new move, and then like someone else takes that move and like reshapes it and does something else with it, and slowly but surely like you get an enormous vocabulary of loads of different things. And I've seen this with so many of the moves, like still to this day, I see like today even I saw a new move I've never seen before. I had to like rewind, what the hell did he just do? And I watched a lot of this. And it's the same in kind of tricking and in kind of street workout as well. Like these kind of freestyle activities that don't have the kind of the boundary conditions and the limits of gymnastics. They don't have, of course, like the coaches and all of the knowledge and stuff, but still you see it now. Like, I mean, for a while people were like, oh yeah, street workout, like they're just doing some shitty planches. Look now, like you have people doing worse things than some of the best string gymnasts, and they're just some random dude training in his room listening to like anime music. So like I think it's so cool with all these things because they expose like hundreds of thousands of people to these activities. And what is going to happen is you're going to get an insane influx. You're going to, of course, get a lot of people who are just average, but you're going to get the talents out as well on a scale that is almost hard to keep up with for many of the professional sports, because that you need to go through the formalized systems to get from A to B. While like in street workout, you have someone like, oh yeah, I saw the cool kids doing Maltese to invert cross. You know what? Fuck them. I'm going to do like the entire thing and then go back down into this and that. And then they're 14 and they're full of fire, and like some break, but some end up doing it. So I think it's really cool to see these kind of unstructured art forms tricking the same.
The guy doing iron cross on the pinkies.
Yeah.
The other day.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, it's like we're talking about it. You know what comes to my mind? The one sentence, hold my beer. And then they go and invent stuff. Literally.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. I spoke with some like old school UK people. They say like, we never thought that we're going to be able to do like 360s and stuff like that. Now look at these kids. They just, every year there's something new coming up.
Yeah.
spinning. They're doing what, 540s now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's such like, and I mean, like, I have no disrespect for circus or for gymnastics or these kind of more formalized things at all.
Of
I
course
think it's
not.
great as well. It's just cool to see what happens when you let loose that kind of wild
Yeah,
young
when you don't
energy
have
on it.
rules.
Yeah,
When
exactly.
when there is no rules.
Yeah, and like you said, like the kids come in then and just they see this, they try, and then like it starts happening. Like I remember some years ago, like people were saying, "Oh yeah, but this thing is impossible. No one's done it before, so then it's not doable." And then some kid comes along, he's 14, and boom, like they were talking also about like standing double backflip on completely flat grass that like it was almost impossible to land it nicely. Now there's a couple of kids doing it, and they're 14 because they're just gonna show you up because that's what the young generation kind of does. So I think it's really cool to see this and like how you can kind of reform a lot of art forms when you don't necessarily have the tight rule set, and that is and like you see also now within like in, for example, in calisthenics street workout and stuff, you see a lot of kind of the really good guys. Their form is perfect. They have kind of decided, okay, yeah, we're gonna do it as good as the gymnasts. So like it's tight. Like the shoulders are like exactly like in Olympic placement. The knees are locked, the toes are pointed. Everything is like that. So they have the ability to do it too. And I'm kind of happy to see them kind of do that because I remember in the beginning I spoke to a couple of gymnasts and like, yeah, but this is just like it looks like trash. And now it's just like, yeah, but these kids are schooling you. It's nice to see.
On your profile on Instagram, you have a term, Scapulararchitect.
Oh yes.
Let's expand on it a little bit. I mean,
I
think more or less I know what you mean by that. But let's give some information for the audience as well.
This is just, I mean, it's just a joke. I like to invent stupid new words, and what happens is they kind of drop into my head when I think about things, and there's this kind of like uh, combination of words come together. And I was just thinking, like, yeah, hand balancer is essentially so, like you're creating architecture, like you're forming various geometrical kind of aesthetically pleasing shapes, and you like, and the scapula is the kind of the main thing of that entire architecture. It's kind of the founding pillar of the entire thing. So it was just a joke. I meant to not write kind of hand balancer because that's such a boring
I like
term.
it. To be honest, I like it because if we look at the scapula, is without the fully functional scapula, everything else just doesn't gonna work. Like you're not gonna be able to push if they are not there. You're not gonna be able to push because they're pushing the shoulders forward, right?
Yeah.
They're pulling them back. They allow you to rotate with the stability and stuff like that. So it's like a pillar of everything of your upper body. It's like you would remove hips.
Yeah,
from the legs.
It's such I mean, I've gone through a supraspinatus tear here this year.
Ouch.
And I mean, it's healing now. It takes a long time, but it's very interesting to feel how big of a difference it has been when, I mean, it hasn't been a full rupture. I went and I did an ultrasound. I was worried about my labrum and stuff. You can't see the labrum on the ultrasound, but he basically said that, like, he looked at all the tendons and said, okay, yeah, well, here we have the source of your issue. There was like a hole in the tendon of the supraspinatus coming down in the humerus. It wasn't large. He said, okay, I give this 3 to 4 months and you're going to probably be pretty fine. He told me, okay, yeah, you're not an average guy. You're like a high-performing athlete. So keep training. Don't do things that are stupid and hurts, and do these kind of rehab stuff. So he gave me just very basic kind of rotator cuff strengthening things. But it's interesting to see like how large of an impact it has, because on bad days, even still, it's as if like I have no control. Like it's as if my shoulder just drops and I don't know why. Whereas like, I mean, in every single handstand workout I ever did, I always fell, no doubt. But most of the time you have a sensation, you go like, oh no, my shoulder dropped, or like, oh shit, I pushed too much this way, or like you feel the process of what's going on because I'm so sensitive to what's happening. But here it's been like, okay, I'm on my arm, and I fall down. It's like, what the hell happened there? And my only presumption is just that like my supraspinalis can't fire effectively, and sometimes it might not fire at all due to the injury it has. And then it just doesn't work. And like in daily life, I function perfectly. Like it's just that I'm doing such crazy, like extreme positions with my shoulder that it's obviously that if it has a problem, it is going to cause you destabilization a lot quicker. So like you said, it's just like it's so much just about the stability of this area and having the control there. And that is something that like in handstand terms are just still, I feel, very misunderstood, that like core strength and blah blah blah. Like the main thing is just keeping control of your scapula. If you can control the head of the humerus and control your scapula, like a lot of the entire kind of work of learning handstands is done.
Let's bring back there's something we were talking about before we started live. It's about the reality of training, right? So some stuff you do, when I start following you, I've seen for a first time, and I assume they are impossible, right? I know I'm 100% sure I cannot do anything what you are doing. I can do attempts, but what stuff do you struggle with that you know you're not gonna be able to do it?
So yeah, I mean, to me, it's I've always been like very interested in a lot of kind of like the strength stuff of hand balancing. And like I remember when I first got into hand balancing, there's a couple of things that I was really just fascinated as to how the hell is this possible? And like I became obsessed with one arm press to handstand very early on, because like I loved presses to handstand, just because that was one of the things that I used to do when I learned breaking as well. I just naturally learned to press, and I thought I was cool. And then I saw this was somehow possible to do on one arm, and like, whoa, hell, this I want to do. And yeah, like learning that was a huge struggle for me. And it's because like the higher up you kind of go on the kind of, how to say, the vertical hierarchy of difficulty of these things, the more your proportions, your body weight, your strength to weight ratio, your level of fitness, all this starting to actually matter significantly. And I think it's like actually basically inversely, or like it's proportional to the same thing. As I mean, you said you're like over 100 kgs. If me and you would start out trying to compete in bench press against each other, it's very obvious who would lift the highest amount of weight, like no matter what. Like if we would do calculations to weight class, it might not be so different, but like the absolute weight that you could move would just be a lot larger than the absolute weight I could move. Like it would be extremely unlikely that I would be able to do to reach such an absolute weight. And like there is a reason why, what's his name, Hafthor, the Icelandic huge strongman, there's a reason that he could deadlift 500 kg, because he's a fucking monster of a man, while like a smaller person couldn't move that kind of weight. And with body weight movements, it's just the opposite. Like if you have less body weight to move and still a quite good amount of strength on that, you are going to get things faster. And you're going to be able to potentially move a lot further. I know people that got better at me in handstands by quite a long shot in less than half of the time. And I'm 180. I am like, I fluctuate between 80 kilos and 77, 76. And for me, there's an enormous difference. If I'm 80 kilos, there are certain things that I cannot do. One arm press to handstand, I barely ever managed on 80 kilos. On 76, 77, it's usually okay. But it's there you see that like I am obviously then, for my body structure, like I'm already playing with fire. I'm already kind of towards some sort of limit. And it's the same with planche. Like when I'm in shape, I can do a straddle planche. If I'm not in shape, I can't do a straddle planche. But I've basically just seen that, for example, let's say a full planche, it's just, I don't know if I could be able to do a real full planche unless I would dedicate an extreme amount of time, basically removing other types of priorities and possibly dropping weight. The only time I was close to a full planche to some degree, I think I was like 75, maybe 74 kilos. And it was because like I was having a shit period in my life and I didn't eat enough. And I was a fucking god on my hands at the time because like I was so light. I was just fine compared to when I'm more healthy and in a better place. Because like then I eat normally, and it becomes kind of a thing there, which I like you said, you mentioned realism, that it's important to, because it's so popular to talk about no limits and beast mode and just go and go and go, and like there are limits. Like I can't run as fast as Usain Bolt. Like it's not going to happen. I can run faster than me and I can get better, but it's important to see these types of limitations for what they are, because a body is a body.
Most important, don't look down on yourself if you cannot do something because of some your natural specifics.
Yeah.
I went through my mind in the beginning when I was starting. Oh, I'm so heavy. I'm so that. Like, just why I'm worrying about it. Like, I like to do my legs. I like my legs when they are strong, and I like to deadlift crazy amounts of weight and squat. I love it, but it's obviously that's put me in a position that I'm never gonna be able to do planche because my calf is the size of some guys that do planches chest. Like, it's that simple. The leverage, like we talked before, it's just physics and mathematics. That's it. You're not gonna overcome that, because otherwise your shoulder we have to look twice the size of your chest, and the rest of the body has to be thin.
Yeah. It's like, and I think like it's very important also to mention that like the things that we're mentioning here is primarily when we're moving towards higher difficulty things. The things that I think is achievable for most people are things like, I mean, everyone can learn how to handstand as I see it, as long as you have functional arms and like you don't have any specific injuries and you have like a reasonable level of regular fitness, you can learn to handstand. Even one arm handstand, I think that most people with a high level of dedication and more fitness than a two-arm handstand, but like someone who really wants to learn a one-arm handstand could, through years of practice, some faster than others, but it's possible with a lot of time, because with a thing such as a handstand, you have several parameters that dictate how difficult the thing you're doing is. Like you can get better technique, you can get better shoulder opening. Okay, I'm heavy, it's hard for me. Okay, you work crazy on your splits. You suddenly you have like a massive split which helps you, and you can there are many things that can be done to manipulate. And like same with the press to handstand, I love to compare presses to handstand to planche, because in a press you're trying to make it as easy as possible, and you're trying to compress the body as much as possible, use as much flexibility as possible, like lean at least possible, using like high shoulder flexion and so on. And the ultimate way of learning a press then is developing a good pancake, a good pike, a good split, good shoulder flexibility, a good handstand, and some decent compression strength. So that's a lot of stuff that you can work on separately with specific movements, and then you slowly but surely put them together. While in a planche is as simple as put your hands on the floor and lean forwards. If you're strong enough, your legs will float off the floor at a certain point. Like there isn't more, like there aren't much more, like you can't cut the body in half. You can straddle your legs, but then again, the technical difficulty of straddling your legs in a planche isn't very high. Like you can basically do like a reverse hyper, holding on to something and lifting your legs and straddling, and you will emulate the same lifting. So there are so few ways to make a planche easier, and of course there's some technique involved there too, but I think it's a very good comparison, because like it will always take you the same amount of net force to do a planche. If like let's just for the sake of example take a full planche. where the legs will be at the same point and everything will be at the same point. The forwards lean will always take the same amount of force to get the feet off the floor, unless you lose weight. Like it's not going to reduce the amount of force. So all the body can do is compensate by generating more force, and like that will start having a drop off at one point where it'll be harder and harder for the body to go past a certain threshold of force production. So that is where I find it important to start looking at, like, the things that have few variables to manipulate. Those might be more difficult to achieve for some people than others, whereas there are more parameters to manipulate. It might be more accessible because you can adjust and like you can find more your own way.
You can compensate one with another.
Exactly. And just for like taking the complete opposite spectrum of the full planche, you can say, for example, to do a contortion like the what they call the rows, where you back bend so much you put your butt on your head. Obviously, not everyone is going to be able to do that. Some can get really close, and those who have like are more gifted genetically than others can get closer than others. Some might even be able to do it right off because of just crazy genetics. But like for me to try to do that, I don't think it would be physically possible for my body structure at this point in time to be able to do it, perhaps ever. And there are differences in skeletons. There are differences in tendon lengths and like the pliability of tissues and stuff within people. So it's just important to think that, okay, I could get better at back bending. I could probably get a good bridge, because we were talking average then. But like if we're going like contortion level stuff, it starts being specialized, and you might need to consider like, okay, is this for me or not? Like, and most importantly, am I ready for the real sacrifice it will take to go there? Which then might mean stuff like, yeah, let's say for you, okay, planche or nothing. Okay, I do not need to sacrifice loads of things. I know those guys who are like, okay, I stopped training everything because I need to be able to do a push-up with my legs in the air. Like, and I respect it. It's cool. If that's what you want to do, rock on.
It's a dedication.
Yeah, it's for some and not for everyone, basically.
I just gave up on the idea of planche. Too much. I rather have fun. I rather have fun training sessions and maintain them, than be like stick to the one certain thing and just do. It doesn't have that much value. Oh, that's the thing. It doesn't have that much value for me to sacrifice as much as it requires. So let's talk about your current training. Are you preparing for anything specific now? Training for any specific skills?
Right now, as I mentioned, like with the rotator cuff tear, like I basically had one of my probably my worst year in training for a fair while, I would say. It's a lot of it is my own fault of just basically not how to say. I was in really good shape last April. I probably pushed too hard, started to develop some small issues, and which I didn't take care of well enough. I kept on going, and I like basically through the last like 15 years of training, I've just been able to go way too much compared to what I should have been able to do. And but I've been used to it. Like in my 20s, it was no problem. I could just fly through it, and it didn't bother me that much. Now I need to pay more attention, take more care. And through this year, like I had periods of ups and periods of downs, but every time I was starting to feel better, I went back to my normal routine, which like my body wasn't ready for it. So like after Christmas, after I went to the physio and got the shoulder checked, and he said there was the tear and stuff, like I started to be smarter with my training, which I think is like I'm probably doing more sustainable training now than in a very long time. So my main focus is rehabbing basically the shoulder, and like at this point in time, rehabbing for me means like endurance one arms, for example, is one of the things that I feel is helping me the most now, because like I've gotten strong in the various rotation exercises again. Like I don't have pain anywhere. Like it's a bit stiff and sore, but when I do handstands on one arm, like I can still do most of it, but like my endurance isn't where it was. And that's affecting the amount of technical stuff that I can comfortably do. So I'm working on up that. I'm working back kind of my strength on pressing. I'm working like back to some degree of planche, and just like working back the what I consider my basics, which are of course higher than most people's handstand basics, like getting back
Yeah,
like
it's like insane. Oh, to recover from my shoulder injury, I just do one arms for reps.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That is
it,
like
it sounds ridiculous, but that's your reality because you've
yeah,
been doing this for so long. How long you been?
exactly.
How long you been doing that?
I mean, I've been doing hand balancing specifically now for 12 years, and I've done it on like a very high frequency. I worked very hard on it, but so like now it's getting the joint up to par. It is getting the kind of like I'm also just working a little bit more kind of generalized now because I feel that like I don't know if it's like you can make any like direct rationales between like what you can do in one motion versus another, but I've kind of felt like, oh yeah, I should maybe try to add some pulling into my training, try to diversify my training a bit more because it's been extremely specific and very narrow training for a lot of years. So I started adding in some pull-ups. I've started adding in like I basically have 1 day a week where I do what I would consider more like conventional strength training work. I don't work on trying to do a skill or try to do anything that I that would impress me. Like I'm doing my handstand push-ups, I do tuck planche push-ups, I do my chins with weights, and that is basically that workout. And what feels good about that is like we talked about that, like it's very simple. Like you're not chasing a skill. You go in, you do some shit, and you finish up, and you come back next week. You try to add slightly more. So I have 1 day a week where I do that, and I can fill my lats fried today from that. Then on kind of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I do hand balancing, but like not that much. I'm kind of keeping it quite chill. So today, okay, I know I'm sore. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do some one arms, nothing complicated. Just play around a little bit with it.
Complicated.
Wednesday, I'm going to do like a proper hand balancing session, work on like more of like some of the harder skills again. Thursday, I'm going to do a little bit less again, quite chill session. And Friday, I'm going to kill it on kind of one arm related strength, which is like, yeah, all of my presses and all like kind of that stuff that is very demanding on the shoulder. And that means that like I basically do 2 sessions a week, which are heavy on kind of the shoulder area, but they're on different things. And I've been doing this for the last 6 weeks now, and I can. The good thing that I found right now is that I'm able to. It's predictable. I know that on Mondays I'll be able to do a decent workout on that strength. I know that the days in between I can do a little bit here and there, and I know that on Friday I can actually. I'm recovered enough, and I've had a full week since the last of those types of trainings, so that I can work on the hard stuff again. On Saturday or Sunday, I do some legs, but I rest the upper body. So I have those 2 days off, and I'm pretty happy about this routine because like I am making some gains, but it's going slow, and I'm happy about like, okay, I'm not rushing because last time I felt good, I rushed and I crushed it and I fucked myself up again. So it's slow but incremental gains, and the fact that I'm resting 2 days a week, and the fact that during this process my shoulder is getting better and better. So that is kind of like my goal for now, like not training for anything really specific, but I'd like to get back some of my kind of harder handstand movements that I used to do. But I'm also kind of seeing that like, okay, yeah, might be some of them that I won't get back, but it doesn't matter. I've been there, I've done that, and I'm kind of happy with where I got to. And now it's more kind of about enjoying the practice than having to be at kind of, no one can be at the peak always, kind of.
Oh no, of course not. Do you have the days that you just don't want to do anything?
Oh yeah. Or I have the days where I really want to do it and I can't. Those are the most frustrating. Last Thursday I had that. I was like, okay, today's the day. I'm like, because I was having stuff to do on Friday when I was going to do my proper hard workout. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it on Thursday. I feel lightning sharp today. I eat well. Let's have some coffee. Let's go. And I go to the gym and it's like, could barely lift my arm. I was like, I'm fucking dead. I don't know what's wrong with me. And it happens. And yeah, I've just gotten better at just ignoring it. Okay, I don't feel it today. I'm just gonna go home. Who cares? And try to do it the next day or so.
Yeah.
It's
So, peoples, if you skip the training session, you're not gonna die.
yes,
Muscles
basically.
they're not gonna go away. Come back
Nope.
tomorrow and do it.
Exactly.
That's simple. That's simple. Everyone has a days, sometimes weeks even.
Yeah.
There was a one time I took a month doing nothing.
Mm.
It's like
Yeah.
we need them.
Yeah, it can be very healthy, and I think for injury prevention and like thinking long term, it's important to give yourself time and to not have too high expectations on doing super well all the time. And I think when it comes to like working out with a lot of skill work, I think this is the problem, because with skill work you're trying to do a certain task and make it work, and if it doesn't work, it's frustrating. And if you go in every session with this kind of goal that you're going to make the skill work, it's easy to kind of like you're basically like your emotional state is dependent on whether or not you manage, because you're going to get annoyed if you don't. And I think this is where it's important. Like sometimes it's cool to have that, like, okay, yeah, I managed, it's fun, awesome. But if that is the only way you train, you're putting yourself in a situation where you very often don't get much done, compared to like, okay, I'm going to work on a little bit of skill work like that some days, but other days I'm going to go in and I'm going to just do the drills that leads me towards what I want to do, rather than just chasing the dragon, trying to like, okay, yeah, if I manage it, then I have the right to feel great today. Like, no,
You know when you just start doing something and you know it's not gonna go well today. It's just okay. Take a step back, do easy stuff. So you do at least a little towards something instead of doing the big one and then suffer. Like I mentioned before, the one I've done. I went down, hold it here, try to press. That's it. Done. 3 months recovery.
Yep. Yeah. It sucks. That is exactly what I'm trying to avoid doing again now. Last time I did it was in start of January. I felt super good. Did one session that was, it felt really good there and then the days after I was like, fuck, why is it feeling bad again? I know why it's feeling bad again. It's I did it. So very important to be able to pace yourself there.
All right, so let's go. Let's summarize a little bit. What tips you would have for an audience that want to start hand balancing?
So for hand balancing, I would say general, before I speak about kind of my own approach to it. I mean, I think what is good to do if you want, try to find out a little bit about how the practice works. And there's loads of free resources out there already. So like, get in touch with people who are capable, or like watch tutorials, kind of like start understanding what is the practice is a part of. But also be aware that there's a lot of conflicting information out there. So I would actually search out people with a good source of knowledge for it, because it's like, I mean, if you go into like kind of the wrong circles of like, there's a lot of kind of clickbait programs out there that are just like, develop your handstand in 2 weeks, yay! Like everything that is planning to give you short-term gains with this, like it's basically bogus. Like it doesn't work like that. So I mean,
short-term solutions lead to long-term problems
most of the time. And with this, it's just like you're not going to get far, and like there's a lot of kind of like misinformation, even like people that just don't understand what they're writing about. I mean, so like, of course, you have the option of coaching, and I do personal coaching as well, and I am running Handstand Factory, which I need to mention here, which is a resource for teaching hand balancing online that I'm doing. I co-made with Emmett Lewis, who is an expert on flexibility training, and he also teaches handstands and other various bits and pieces of physical trainings. So, I mean, if you're interested in specific knowledge about hand balancing training, I could certainly recommend that because I wrote it. And I have to say, I do think we did a good job. And that doesn't mean we are the only ones that know how to teach handstands. There are loads of people out there that are very qualified and capable. And being just a good performer at something doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good teacher. I think that, like, make sure when you're learning handstands that you understand the basic principles of how it works, such as learning to balance from the fingers, applying the force on the ground with the fingers to be able to keep yourself in balance, shoulder positioning, understanding how kind of the scapula connects and how kind of the shoulder elevation and the placement and so on. Another one is, don't get too caught up in details too early. Because if you're new at this, it's going to be like being new at everything else. You can't take in all details at once. Like, if you go to a guitar class for the first time and the guitar teacher gives you the guitar, they're not going to ask you to play a solo first time. They're going to give you a bunch of grips and a bunch of super basic drills. They're going to ask you to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat until you slowly but surely can put together a couple of grips, and so on and so on and so on. And down the line, you play the song. Don't try to play the song right off, and make sure that, like, you focus on understanding, as I said, the bits and pieces. Learn to use the wall, for example. Learn how kick-ups work, and learn to, as we are teaching in Handstand Factory, one thing is like separating the pieces that can constitute the handstand, so that you're learning drills that teach you the parts that become your frame, like that becomes your framework to train the entire handstand. Because if you just try and try and try, it's very random, and it's hard to get a system onto it. And also on the other side, if you try to apply, okay, I need to push my fingers, push my shoulders, tense my glutes, tense my thighs, point my toes, look at the floor right there, then keep balance. If you try to do all these things at once when you're not experienced, you're going to likely manage none of them. So setting up scenarios where you're able to work on one of the capacities, let's say finger pressure, you use a back to the wall handstand, which is set up in a proper way so that you can start sensing, okay, if I push the fingers on the floor like this, something happens to my body structure, which means that you're teaching your body to understand the context and the concept of what's going on, rather than just trying to do the handstand. You learn the hand, okay, you do stomach to wall to learn the shoulder push, feel how that works. You do a couple of other drills to learn how the legs work. You learn basic kick-up motions to learn how that works. You practice all of these separately, and slowly but surely you start putting them together, and that's what constitutes the handstand. That was a long rant.
Great, solid tips. I just want to add, I'm the person that learned randomly. I just try. I was doing like 100 kick-ups a day. And I was strong. I had no mobility for it. There was a banana. I think banana is fine in the beginning. Teach yourself how to use this. It's amazing.
It's like, I mean, having slightly, like, as long as you know what you're trying to achieve and that you use tools that bring you slowly but surely towards it, it's not fine. It's not a problem to have imperfect form in the beginning. It's funny, like, all of kind of friends of mine that are like quite advanced hand balancers and handstand teachers that have taught for years, they're like, we've all kind of agree on that people just like try way too hard to be perfect in the beginning.
Exactly.
Just allow yourself to make some mistakes. Slowly but surely you'll learn, and the more serious you are about it, the further you will take this kind of quest for perfecting it and getting super good at it. But you don't need to become an elite performer at it. First of all, and most importantly, is that you enjoy and that you have fun with.
Yeah, like I said to people, like, are you preparing for competition? Are you preparing for this? Are you preparing to go on a stage? Like, you have a whole life. You have a whole life to learn it. Like, why are you rushing?
Yeah, good point. Very good point.
There's a whole life for that. All right, now let's give some tips for a person that can actually hold the handstand now and want to progress it even further, correct the line maybe, and stuff like that. We're not gonna go into advanced. It's just the intermediate. Because if we go to the advanced, there is so many branches that you can go through.
Yeah, I guess for intermediate hand balancing, I think there has been around this kind of concept that you need to do a minute, and that is kind of your first milestone. I don't think that is. I think that is a bit too long for someone to go like, okay, I can stand. Yeah, and like I can stand on my hands for 10 seconds. Okay, cool. But from there to 60 seconds is a long time. From 10 to 30 seconds, it's also a long time. Okay, so I would say get to 20 plus seconds, being able to balance, start there. Then like as you have some sort of consistency, you can stand on your hands, then start working on shaping up your form. If you are one of those people, some people have the form from the start, but start shaping up your form, like learn about like scapular elevation, and you might need even shoulder flexibility to be able to reach that positioning. And then I would say the next part is starting to learn the tuck handstand, the straddle handstand, and starting to learn leg movements. Because what this does is that it takes your handstand, which is then your basic structure, and it starts challenging the structure and the balancing capacity with movements and complexity, which means that if you go up and you're working on only endurance handstand, all your goal is, okay, towards 1 minute, you have one single task, which is quite long, which is quite arduous, and which is going to take you a long time to actually reach the 1 minute, because like you need to reach 45 seconds first, and so on. And it's going to get kind of boring after a while. So what I would advise, instead of only chasing that, start moving your legs, because you're going to experience different sensations in handstand. You're going to have more things to do, more variation. And since this is skill work, you need a bit of variation. And like learning the tuck in particular is going to help your shoulder flexion as well, because you put weight in front of the body, which requires you to flex your shoulders even harder in response to not fall down. And like learning the tuck and the straddle handstand and the movements between them and between straight and so on will also start giving you a level of preparation towards the eventual press to handstand that can come later on. So it's those two positions are the primary ones. And I would also say start learning the jumps to handstand, which means the tuck jump to handstand and the straddle jump to handstand. They are also intermediate drills, which will again give you variation, and it'll give you the trajectory of a press to handstand, but with a jump. So that means you have 2 extra entries, you have 2 extra leg positions to work on, you have movements between them, and if you would even want to go further than that, you could start doing stuff like cartwheel to handstand as well, which is also a great drill, and starts implementing the sideways dimension into the handstand. So those are kind of like the mainstay things I'd say for like the intermediate practitioners, kind of right after the regular handstand, because all of this stuff starts naturally to move towards the press. And if you want to go further than press to handstand and kind of start dabbling with one arms or other complex vocabulary, you are most likely well off being able to press due to a lot of various biomechanical reasons and technical reasons. But this stuff starts taking you in that direction without training the press. And then comes the point where like, okay, you've gotten really good at tuck jump, straddle jump, and straddle handstand movements. You want to start training the press. Hey ho, you actually have a foundation to start training the press, rather than, okay, I can do 10-second handstand and I'm going to start pressing. As soon as you open your legs, you just fall down because you don't have any control of your legs. What do you think is the best idea?
Then break it down.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was some good ones as well over here. Like I said, start doing bends and stuff like that. I like you said, 60 seconds. Like around 20, I'm just getting bored and I'm starting to experimenting. It's just holding it in one position. It's just like, no, I need to do something. It's too boring. And then I'm starting, like you mentioned, tuck. Tuck is very hard for me, for example. I know I don't have that much of open shoulders, but it's really, really challenging.
Yeah, for someone like you, then like
definitely.
Developing like the tuck handstand is one of the safest bets for actually, like, because like when it comes to shoulder flexion and all that stuff, like it's kind of misunderstood, because it's not just about being able to have the passive range. What you need to be able to do is support your body in that specific situation. So you need to be able to have the strength to keep the joint there while under the weight of your entire body and bringing the legs in front of your body. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's actually very hard to develop very specific strength without working on the specific thing, because it's such a, like, there's so many things going on, so being able to emulate all of that with other exercises such as weights is difficult. Whereas, like, it's easier to see the relevance of grabbing 2 dumbbells and doing like lifts, straight arm lifts in front of you. It's more relevant to planche than other weight exercises to press, because in a planche, what you're doing, you keep the body straight and you literally lift your arm like this. So the pressure feels very similar to doing a planche if you grab heavy weights and you do that lift. Whereas if you do other similar kind of lifts with the arms overhead and stuff, you don't really get the sensation of the tuck handstand. And the tuck handstand is on top of that a balancing skill. So the joint needs to be responding to all of the micro movements happening and so on. So this is something that, like, in and large, is best to train in the handstand, and there are several wall setups for doing that as well.
All right, Michael, let's close this stuff up.
Yes.
That's your time. Promote yourself. Tell something more about your business. You already mentioned some.
Yes.
Tell us what we can expect.
Yeah. So about the things that I do, I mean, I do have personal online coaching through various means, but primarily it's like program writing, where I make specific programs for you depending on your goals, and largely relating, of course, to hand balancing. If anyone is interested in that kind of stuff, you can, of course, contact me through DM on Instagram, or you can also get in touch with me through my website, which is mikaelbalancing.com. Other than that, I am running Handstand Factory, as I mentioned, together with Emmett Lewis. We are offering programs there on learning the basic handstand. We have like a series of programs called Push, which is for the basic 2-arm handstand, Keep Pushing, which is for the leg movements and strap jumps and kind of intermediate stuff, as I just mentioned, Press, which is for press to handstands, obviously, and Push Harder, which is for 1-arms. We are also currently developing further programs as well, relating to various skills, both in between these ones and into kind of the more complex vocabulary. We have also a bunch of free information on the site. There is a program called Grip, which is basically a take care of your wrist program you get for free on handstandfactory.com. And yeah, we're also sharing a bunch of information about trainings and similar things on the Instagram Handstand Factory, and also on my Instagram, Mikael Balancing. So you're welcome to take a look at all of that. And if you're interested in anything specific, just don't hesitate to contact me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Make sure you follow him. Don't even dare to skip this one. It's really full of knowledge. I love your IGTVs when you explain stuff.
Oh, thanks.
I learned a lot from from following you. So Brilliant. It's definitely something you guys don't want to give it a miss. My people, thank you very much for coming in, Michael. That's really a pleasure.
A pleasure.
Thank you, my guys over here watching. Thank you for joining in. We don't have any questions, but it's gonna build up with the time, obviously. Again, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
We might do one in the future and expand on a little bit more stuff. I think I have something on my mind already.
Absolutely. All right.
So take care, guys. See you soon.